When it comes to someone who leans avoidant, they only become truly emotionally attached when they feel deeply, consistently, undeniably safe with you. And I am not talking about the kind of safety you perform by walking on eggshells and silencing your needs. I am talking about the kind of emotional safety that tells their nervous system, over and over again, you are not going to drown here. You are not going to be controlled here. You are not going to be punished here for simply being who you are. Because for an avoidant, love has never been neutral. Love has been loud, unpredictable, demanding, and sometimes suffocating. So when they step close to you, even if they are smiling on the outside, their body is on red alert, scanning your tone, your reactions, your patterns, asking, will I lose myself in this? Will I disappoint them? Will this turn into a storm I do not know how to handle? And if the answer inside them is yes, their heart quietly steps back, no matter how attracted they are, no matter how much chemistry is there, no matter how many intense moments you share, they will not attach in chaos, in control, or in pressure. They only attach when their system starts to believe, maybe this is different, maybe here I am not required to disappear in order for someone else to feel loved. And that belief is not created by one big gesture, it is created by 1,000 small moments where you choose calm honesty over emotional explosions, where you choose curiosity over interrogation, where you choose a grounded, regulated presence over panic-driven chasing. Emotional safety for them looks like you being able to say, I feel hurt, I feel anxious, I feel confused, without turning those feelings into weapons, without using their fear as proof that they are broken or unlovable. It looks like you being able to sit across from them in a hard conversation and keep your voice steady enough that they do not feel like a cornered animal. It looks like you being able to hear, I need some space, without instantly translating it into rejection, failure, and abandonment, and reacting in ways that confirm their worst expectations. Emotional safety looks like you regulating yourself before you demand that they regulate you. It is you taking your spirals to your journal, to your therapist, to your friends, so that the message you bring to them is not, fix me right now, but, I am working on me, and I want to work on us too. When you do that, their body starts to relax around you, even if their mind is still scared, and they begin to associate you with exhale, not with tension. They start to notice that they can make a mistake, and you will address it without blowing up their identity, that they can say, I do not know how to talk about this, and you will not mock them, that they can ask for time to process, and you will honor it without chasing them into the cave and ripping the door off its hinges. And every time that happens, another layer of armor loosens, another part of them whispers, maybe I do not need as much distance with this person, maybe closeness here does not equal collapse. Emotional safety also means they do not have to be the strong, unemotional one all the time. It means the day they finally say I am scared, or I feel like I am going to mess this up, you do not pounce on it as your chance to force more from them. You do not say, finally, now tell me everything. You do not weaponize their confession later when you are angry. Instead, you treat their vulnerability like glass, careful, respectful. You listen, you thank them, you let them have their pace, and that experience is foreign to them, because they are used to people begging them to open up, and then punishing them when they do. So when you become the one who can handle their truth without turning it against them, you instantly become safer than anyone they have known before. Emotional safety is not you becoming small, it is you becoming steady, standing in your own worth, so that you do not need to scream, manipulate, or threaten to be heard. And that steadiness is exactly what their nervous system needs in order to risk attachment. Remember, an avoidant will not get emotionally attached just because you love them harder, cry harder, chase harder, or prove over and over again that you will never leave. They get attached when, over time, your energy shows them that they are free to stay or free to go, and you will still be you, that they are not being dragged into a role, that they are not being asked to be your entire emotional oxygen supply. They attach when they realize that being close to you does not mean signing a contract to abandon themselves. It means entering a space where both of you are allowed to be flawed, scared, healing humans, where their discomfort is not instantly judged and your needs are not instantly erased. They attach when your calmness, your self-respect, and your emotional responsibility consistently teach their body. Love here does not mean I disappear. Love here means I am seen, I am challenged, I am cared for, and I am safe enough to stay. Consistency is the language an avoidant understands better than any promise, any poem, any long late-night speech. Because someone who has lived through emotional whiplash does not trust words, they trust patterns. And if you want them to ever become emotionally attached to you, your consistency has to prove, again and again, that you are not a threat to their nervous system. You are not another storm dressed up as sunshine. You are not here to change your tone, your rules, and your love every time your mood swings. You have to understand that an avoidant has learned, often from a very young age, that love can flip fast, that the same person who says, "I love you," at noon can say, "What is wrong with you?" at night. So they walk into every relationship waiting for that flip, and when your behavior is all over the place, hot one day, cold the next, promising calm then delivering chaos, you confirm their deepest fear, that love is unpredictable, and that the safest place to live is at a distance. Your consistency is not about being perfect or emotionless. It is about being steady enough that they can finally stop bracing for impact. It is you showing up in the same energy, not fake, not forced, but grounded. If you say you will call, you call. If you say you need space, you take it without punishing them. If you are upset, you say you are upset without burning the house down. And each time you do that, you whisper to their nervous system, "You do not have to scan me for danger every second. I am who I say I am." Every avoidant has a story in their body that says, people change on you, people turn on you, people use what you tell them in your soft moments as ammunition in your hard moments. So they watch you closely, more closely than you realize. They notice if you love bomb them when you feel insecure, and then pull away once you feel safe. They notice if you reassure them when you want something, and then guilt trip them when they cannot give it. They notice if the rules of the relationship change depending on your mood. Their emotional attachment will never grow in that soil. Their attachment grows when they see that your kindness is not a mask, that your patience is not a performance, that your respect is not conditional. It grows when they realize that the way you are on the good days is still the way you are on the hard days. Maybe more raw, maybe more honest, but not cruel, not manipulative, not vindictive. Consistency is you holding the same core values no matter how you feel. If you say you do not weaponize silence, you do not suddenly go days without speaking just to teach them a lesson. If you say you are open to their truth, you do not throw their vulnerability back in their face the second you are hurt. And when you slip, because you will, you repair with the same accountability each time. That sameness, that predictability, is what starts to quietly dismantle their defenses. Think of it like this. Every interaction is another data point their brain is collecting. They are asking without words, "Are you safe? Are you stable? Are you going to flip on me? Are you going to use me?" And your consistency answers those questions better than any reassurance you could ever give. When you say, "I am not going to scream at you for being honest," and then they are honest and you do not scream, their body remembers. When you say, "I am not leaving every time we argue," and then the first real conflict hits and you stay in the conversation instead of slamming the door, their body remembers. When you say, "I need you to communicate," and then you model that by actually communicating your own feelings instead of sulking or punishing them, their body remembers, slowly. The story that love is unpredictable and dangerous is challenged by a new story. With you, I sort of know what to expect, and for an avoidant, that is huge. Because unpredictability is what makes them run, while consistency is what makes them curious enough to stay. Your consistency is also about emotional tone, not just actions on a schedule. If one day you are affectionate and playful, and the next day you are cold and sarcastic, because you feel insecure, they will sense that shift immediately. They will feel like they are walking on invisible landmines. They never know which version of you they are going to get. So they default to distance because distance feels safer than trying to guess. But when your tone is rooted in self-regulation, when you are stressed, but you still speak with basic respect, when you are triggered, but you still own your part instead of attacking their character, when you are scared, but you still communicate instead of exploding, They begin to trust that being around you will not mean constant adrenaline. You become a steady emotional climate instead of a sudden storm, and in that climate, attachment can actually grow, because attachment requires exposure. And no avoidant will expose their heart to a hurricane for long. They might flirt with it. They might be drawn to the intensity, but they will not attach there. They attach where their body can finally rest. Consistency is not about making yourself small or quiet just to keep them comfortable. It is about being grounded and honest in a way that does not swing wildly. It is about not going from, "You are everything to me," to, "You are nothing to me," in a week. It is about not rewriting the whole relationship every time you feel pain. It is about saying, "I am hurt, but I still see you. I am angry, but I am not going to attack who you are. I am disappointed, but I am not going to rewrite history to say it was all fake." This emotional steadiness shows them that conflict with you is survivable, and that is a major turning point. Because an avoidant is terrified that conflict will destroy everything, so they avoid it, which means they avoid depth. Your consistency through conflict teaches them. We can disagree and still be us. We can hurt and still repair. We can feel big feelings and not instantly become enemies. And that lesson is one of the most powerful seeds of emotional attachment they will ever experience. You also have to understand that your consistency with yourself might be the most important part. If you constantly abandon your own boundaries, values, and routines to be available for them, you think you are showing how loyal and loving you are, but what they feel is instability. They see that you are willing to bend yourself based on their messages, based on their mood, based on their availability, and that does not make them feel safe. It makes them feel like they are holding too much power, and power in relationships scares them. Your ability to still go to the gym, still see your friends, still sleep on time, still work on your goals, still honor your own non-negotiables even when you are upset with them, is a form of consistency too. It shows them that you are anchored, that you will not collapse into them or vanish without them, that you are not asking them to be your entire life. And that stability makes it safer for them to weave their heart into yours, because they can trust that if they attach, they are attaching to someone who is solid within themselves, not to someone who will shatter at their every move. And that is when their story about love being a threat starts to change, not because you convinced them with words, but because your consistent presence, your consistent energy, and your consistent self-respect have quietly taught them that with you. Emotional attachment might not mean losing themselves. It might finally mean finding a place where they can bring their whole, scared, hopeful heart and not be dropped. When someone who leans avoidant meets a person with real, unshakable self-respect, it hits them in a way they do not fully understand, because they are so used to being chased, begged, over-explained, defended, and forgiven, that standing in front of someone who loves them but clearly does not need them to breathe feels both terrifying and magnetic at the same time. They only become emotionally attached when your energy quietly says, "I care deeply, but I will not collapse for you. I will not abandon myself to keep you. I will not trade my dignity for a breadcrumb of your attention." And that message is not delivered in speeches. It is delivered in how you live. When they text you after days of silence, and you do not reward it with an emotional parade, but with a warm, measured response that reflects your reality. When they pull away to test if you will chase, and you do not sprint after them in a panic, but instead adjust your focus back into your own life, they begin to realize that you are not orbiting them. You are not waiting at the door like a spare part. You have a whole world beyond them, and that truth breeds something far stronger than lust. It breeds respect. And respect is the soil emotional attachment grows in for an avoidant. Self-respect looks like you saying, with your actions, "I want you here, but I will be okay if you are not." It looks like you enjoying their presence without begging for it. It looks like you answering their mixed signals not with more mixed signals, but with boundaries. Saying things like, "I understand you need space sometimes, but disappearing without communication doesn't work for me, and I am not available for that kind of pattern." And then actually living by that, not threatening them with it, not throwing it in their face, just quietly stepping back when they choose distance over respect. That is the moment their mind starts to shift, because they are used to their fear dictating the dynamic. They are used to people bending around that fear, apologizing for even wanting basic consistency. When you refuse to do that, you stand out in their nervous system as someone different. You are not the person who will tolerate half effort forever, and that makes your presence feel precious instead of guaranteed. Self-respect also shows in how you handle your own pain around them. You are allowed to hurt, to cry, to be confused, but you do not weaponize those feelings and hurl them at their chest like proof that they are a monster. You do not beg them to be your healer while you refuse to take responsibility for your own healing. You say, "This hurt me, and I am doing my own work around it, and I need to know if you are willing to meet me differently. If not, I will protect my peace." That energy does not cling. It does not chase. It does not collapse. And that is exactly why it pulls them in. Because an avoidant is terrified of becoming someone's whole emotional oxygen supply. They are terrified of being responsible for every rise and fall in your mood. So when they see that you can feel deeply and still stand on your own 2 feet, still go to work, still eat, still sleep, still keep loving yourself on the days they disappoint you, their fear relaxes a little, attachment becomes less threatening. Because they are no longer stepping into a role where they must be savior, parent, therapist, and partner all at once. They can just be a flawed human beside another flawed human who refuses to shrink into desperation. They only get emotionally attached when they realize you are fully capable of walking away from what hurts you. And still you are choosing to stay and try. That combination is rare. Most people either cling and tolerate everything, or cut off and tolerate nothing. Your self-respect allows you to hold the middle. I will not abandon you when it is hard, and I will not abandon me to keep this going. And that is what finally makes an avoidant nervous system look up and say, "This is someone I could actually build with." Because if they love themselves like that, maybe loving me will not cost them everything. Maybe I can trust this. Maybe I can be attached here without drowning. They also only become emotionally attached when you see their fears clearly and still refuse to turn them into a project, a diagnosis, or a monster you must fix, because underneath all their distance, their jokes, their "I am fine," there is a heart that has been terrified for a very long time, terrified of needing anyone, terrified of being judged, terrified of being trapped. And very few people have ever cared to look past the behavior and see the fear. Most make their avoidance about themselves. They say, "You do not respond because you do not care. You shut down because you are cold. You need space because you are selfish." And in that kind of environment, of course they never attach, because they are constantly being punished for the very defenses that once kept them safe. But when you come into their life with a different kind of gaze, when you are honest about the fact that their patterns hurt, but still able to say, "I get why you learned to protect yourself this way. I see that you are not doing this just to hurt me," your whole presence becomes disarming. You are no longer standing across from them as judge and jury. You are standing beside them, looking at the pattern together. And that stance is what begins to grow emotional attachment. You become the person who can say, "I see you. I see that when we get close you panic. I see that when we argue you feel like a child again in a room full of shouting. I see that your silence is not always indifference. Sometimes it is terror. And I am not here to shame that part of you. I am here to understand it, while still being honest about what I can and cannot live with." That balance is everything. If you swing too far into fixing, analyzing, educating, and pushing them to change on your timeline, they will feel like a broken thing in your hands, not a partner. And they will detach to protect what little dignity they have left if you swing too far into excusing, enabling every shutdown, absorbing every disappearing act without boundaries because they are traumatized. You will lose yourself, and they will never feel truly safe either. Because deep down they know they are hurting you, and you are pretending it is fine. Emotional attachment forms in the middle ground, where you make it safe for their fear to be seen, but not safe for that fear to constantly run the entire relationship. You might say, "I understand why you need space, but I cannot do days of silence. If you care about this, I need you to communicate when you pull back." Or, "I know conflict is hard for you. It is hard for me too. But we cannot keep pretending nothing happened. That honesty is not fixing. It is clarity, and clarity is a kindness to someone whose whole life has been confusion. When they see that you will not slap labels on them every time they struggle, that you will not use their past against them in an argument, that you will not drag them into emotional surgeries they did not consent to, they start to trust you with pieces of truth they have never shown anyone. They might say, "I shut down because I am scared of saying the wrong thing," or, "When you cry, I feel like I am failing, and I do not know how to comfort you." And in those moments, the most powerful thing you can do is not to jump in with a solution, but to breathe and say, "Thank you for telling me. This helps me understand you better. Here is what I need too." When they feel that you can hold both, their fear and your needs, without turning either into a weapon, something inside them softens, because finally they are not being asked to choose between protecting themselves and staying connected. Finally, there is a space where their fear is allowed to exist without ruling everything, and that is where emotional attachment sneaks in, not during the perfect days, but during the messy conversations where you prove that you can witness their shadows, name them, respect them, and still refuse to abandon your own light. Avoidants only get emotionally attached when you stop standing in the waiting room of their life and start walking back into your own, when you stop sitting by the phone, replaying every message, begging the universe for a sign, and instead ask yourself a much braver question. What kind of love am I willing to accept? And what kind of love am I no longer willing to survive? Because as long as your entire focus is on whether they will choose you, their nervous system feels something very familiar: pressure, expectation, responsibility for your happiness, and that does not make them feel closer. It makes them feel cornered when you are constantly asking, "Do they love me? Are they coming back? Why haven't they replied?" You start shrinking your world to the size of their behavior. You cancel your plans. You stop laughing with your friends. You lose your appetite for your own life. And even if you never say it out loud, that energy bleeds through every interaction. They can feel that you are not just reaching for connection. You are reaching for salvation. You want them to be the proof that you are worthy. And for someone who is already terrified of being needed too much, that weight is suffocating. But when you start choosing yourself daily, not as a performance to get a reaction, but as a decision to save your own soul, the entire dynamic begins to shift. You stop waking up and immediately checking if they texted. You wake up and ask, "What do I need today?" You stop postponing your healing and your dreams until they come to their senses. You start therapy. You go back to the gym. You pick up the hobbies you dropped. You meet your friends. You set small goals and keep them. And slowly your energy changes from waiting to moving, from clinging to leading, from begging to deciding. And an avoidant feels that. They may not have the words for it. They may pretend not to notice, but their nervous system registers that you are no longer orbiting them. You are your own center of gravity again, and that is when emotional attachment has room to grow for them, because you are no longer asking them to carry both their fear and your entire sense of self-worth. You have to understand that avoidants are hypersensitive to invisible contracts. They feel it when your kindness is really a trade, when your patience is really a plea, when your love is really an attempt to earn a place in their life. And even if they are attracted to you, that unspoken contract makes them want to escape. They do not want to be the person who decides if you get to feel lovable today. They do not want to be your God, your savior, your parent. So when you keep handing them that role with your energy, they back away, not just from you, but from the responsibility of holding your entire emotional world. When you start choosing yourself, you rip up that contract. You still care about them. You still feel every pang of longing, but you are no longer selling your boundaries to get another hit of attention. If they text at 2 a.m. after ignoring you for days, you no longer leap up like you have been waiting by the door. You check in with yourself. Am I available for this? Does this pattern feel good in my body? And sometimes the answer will be no, and you will do the hardest thing. You will not respond, or you will respond in the morning. Or you will respond with honesty instead of desperation, something like, "I'm glad to hear from you. And I also need more consistency than this if we're going to stay connected." And then, most importantly, you will actually stand by that. Even if your heart is pounding, even if your hands are shaking, that is choosing you. That is you showing yourself that your needs are not negotiable just because you are afraid of losing them. And as you do that, you become less controllable, less predictable in the old ways, less available for half love, and more magnetic in a way that has nothing to do with games and everything to do with self-respect. When you stop waiting by the emotional door, something else happens too. You finally see them clearly, because you are no longer looking at them through the lens of, please pick me. You are looking at them through the lens of, are you capable of meeting me where I am going? An avoidant can feel when that shift happens. When your eyes are no longer begging, they are observing. When you are no longer twisting yourself to fit their comfort, you are anchored in your own standards. And that is when, if there is real potential in them, their feelings start to deepen. Because now they are not just drawn to you physically, they are drawn to your strength. They are drawn to this fact that you will not let them get away with their fear running the entire show. They are drawn to the way you can walk away from what dishonors you, even when you are still in love. Emotional attachment for them is built on respect, and you do not earn their respect by letting them treat you however their fear demands. You earn it by holding your line with kindness, by saying, I know you get overwhelmed, I know space is important for you, and I also know that I need communication and follow through. I am not going to punish you, and I am not going to abandon myself. If you want to be in my life, there are minimums I cannot compromise. And you show them with your behavior that this is not an empty speech, this is reality. If they disappear for weeks, you do not welcome them back into the same position. If they keep showing you that their fear is louder than their effort, you stop arguing with that truth and start protecting your heart. That is choosing you, and strangely enough, that is also the only space where a truly avoidant heart can attach. Because they are finally standing in front of someone who will not be swallowed by loving them. Choosing yourself does not mean you stop loving them. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the name of that love. You stop ignoring the knot in your stomach. You stop making excuses to your friends about their behavior. You stop calling anxiety, chemistry, and inconsistency mystery. You start telling yourself the truth. Yes, this connection is intense. Yes, they trigger deep parts of me. Yes, I see their pain. And also, yes, I deserve to feel chosen in more than just rare, heightened moments. You begin to act from that truth instead of just thinking it. You invest in people who show up. You invest in routines that make you stronger. You invest in a future that does not hinge on one person getting their act together. And as you do, you become less available for drama, less available for those cycles of chase and retreat, less available for conversations that go nowhere. And if the avoidant in your life has any real capacity to love, this is when they feel it, the subtle but undeniable possibility that your story with them has an ending that does not include them. This is when their own feelings stop being theoretical and start becoming urgent. This is when they begin to realize that you are not waiting in the same place they left you. You are moving, and if they do not step up, they will lose access to your light. It is important to be honest. Choosing yourself will not magically force every avoidant to attach. Some will still choose their fear. Some will still choose their patterns. Some will still let you walk away rather than face their own reflection, and that will hurt. But even then, choosing you is not a loss. It is the moment you stop negotiating your value. It is the moment you stop building temples to people who only ever gave you fragments. It is the moment you become available for a love that does not require you to shrink. And if the avoidant you love is capable of real emotional attachment, your self-choice is exactly what will awaken it, not because you played hard to get, but because you finally understood that the only way they can truly choose you is if you are already choosing yourself, standing in your worth, refusing to accept a life spent waiting at the edge of someone else's fear, and inviting them, if they are ready, to meet you in the kind of love that does not keep you frozen, but allows both of you to grow.